The basement was cold and damp, the air thick and stale. He stood there, towering, his head nearly brushing the ceiling. His features were long and slender, limbs stretched unnaturally. His arms hung low, fingers almost grazing his knees. His legs, thin and bone-like, made him stand at an impossible 12 feet tall. His mouth stretched wide, too wide, an unnatural stretched mouth that revealed nothing but a black void inside. His eyes, deep and hollow, were pits of endless darkness, a void that seemed to pull everything in. I don't remember how it got there, or how it even got inside. All I know is I locked it deep in my basement where it couldn't come out. Well, that was until I found the basement door wide open. "Hello," I said, staring into the dark basement that yawned open before me. My voice felt small, swallowed by the shadows below. Fear crawled up my throat, thick and sour, like I might throw it up. I slammed the door shut, my hands shaking. Then I heard it, soft rattling noises from the kitchen, gentle, deliberate, like something was moving in there. Something was in the house with me. I moved deliberately, each step slow and careful. My breath caught in my throat. I watched my surroundings, making no noise as I crept toward the kitchen, and then I saw it. The creature from my basement stood at the sink, its towering frame hunched awkwardly beneath the ceiling. It stared out the window, motionless, its long, slender limbs hanging at its sides. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It just stood there, like it belonged. My heart slammed against my ribs as I bolted for the front door, feet barely touching the ground. I didn't dare look back. I didn't need to. The roar came first, splitting the air like a thunderclap. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was deep, raw, and wrong, vibrating through my bones, rattling my teeth. My legs nearly gave out from the sound alone, but fear shoved me forward. I hit the door hard, bursting into the cold night air. My car was just ahead, parked in the driveway. My keys. I needed my keys. My hand dove into my pocket, fingers trembling as I fumbled them out. Behind me, the door exploded open with a splintering crack. Heavy, unnatural footsteps pounded against the ground, fast, too fast. I didn't have to see it to know it was coming. I could feel it closing the distance. I reached the car, yanked the door open, and threw myself inside. My hands shook so badly the keys slipped from my fingers and hit the floor mat. No, no, no. I grabbed them again, forcing the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered, coughed, the sound of death. The creature lunged from the doorway, its long, bony limbs propelling it forward in a blur of twisted movement. It was nearly to the car. The engine roared to life. I slammed the gear into reverse, tires squealing as I stomped the gas. The car jolted backward, throwing me against the seat as the creature lunged, just barely missing the hood. It's empty black. Eyes locked onto mine for a split second, burning into me before I peeled out of the driveway. I didn't stop. My foot stayed pressed to the floor, the car flying down the long, dark street. The night swallowed everything around me, but I didn't care where I was going, as long as it wasn't back there. Days passed. I barely slept, holed up in a cheap hotel on the edge of town. The room smelled like old cigarettes and stale air, but it didn't matter. It had 4 walls and a locked door. Every night I checked the window, just to be sure. That night was no different. I pulled back the curtain, heart already racing before I even looked. The parking lot below was empty, streetlights flickering weakly against the dark. For a second, I let myself believe I was safe. Then I saw it. Beyond the lot, past the stretch of cracked asphalt and the rusted chain-link fence, the woods began. Thick, black trees rising like jagged teeth. And there, just at the edge, where the trees met the night, it stood. The tall, twisted figure. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It only stared, watching me from the shadows. It found me. In an instant, I yanked the curtains shut, heart slamming against my ribs. My breath came. In quick, shaky bursts. I sprinted to the door, peering through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway outside was empty, still, and quiet. I didn't know how fast it was. I didn't know how smart it was. But it found me. Hours crawled by. The TV droned on in the background, some late-night sitcom I wasn't paying attention to. I kept glancing at the window, half expecting to see it again. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud, just a soft, deliberate tapping. My head snapped toward the door, dread sinking like a cold weight in my chest. Just a quick reminder before we get started, only 4% of my viewers have subscribed to the channel so far. If you enjoy the content, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to hit that subscribe button and support the channel. Thank you so much. Now continue amazing story. Who the hell could that be? I slid off the bed, feet hitting the floor. Before I reached the door, I heard it. A voice. Hello. I need help. Help me. Help me. I need help. Help me. It didn't sound right. It was flat, robotic, like a bad. Recording played over and over. No emotion, no urgency. I froze. My throat tightened. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police, I shouted, voice trembling. The voice didn't stop. Help me. I need help. Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. It wasn't even yelling, just that same lifeless, droning tone. That was the worst part. The calmness. Like it wasn't asking, like it was telling. My hands fumbled for my phone. I dialed 911, fingers shaking so hard I almost hit the wrong numbers. The voice stopped. My stomach twisted. It was like it knew. The operator answered. I explained everything. The voice, the knocking, the thing in the woods. My words tumbled out fast, frantic. We'll send someone, they said, but it might take a few hours. A few hours. My heart sank. My hand shook so badly the phone nearly slipped from my ear. I didn't hang up. I didn't move. I just stared at the door. Waiting, out of fear, I asked, Could you just stay on the line until they come? I don't want to be alone. Shanterfat? First, she hesitated. I'm sorry, sir. We can't do that. We have to answer other calls. Please, I cut in, my voice trembling. Please, I don't think I'll make it if I'm alone. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then, quietly, she said, Okay, I'll stay. Relief washed over me, but it didn't chase the fear away. My eyes stayed locked on the door. Her voice was calm, gentle. My name's Rachel. What's your name? I swallowed hard. It's James? All right, James, I'm here with you. You're not alone. My throat tightened. Thank you, I think it's still out there. Can you still hear the voice? She asked softly. I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. No, it stopped when I called you. But the way it sounded, I paused, shuddering at the memory. It wasn't normal. It was like robotic, repeating itself over and over. Rachel was quiet for a moment, then said, You're doing great, James. Just stay with me. The officers are on their way. I nodded again, trying to steady my breathing. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that the quiet wasn't a good thing. It felt like the calm before something worse. Rachel's voice came through the phone again, steady, but a little more serious. James, who's chasing you? Can you describe them? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat felt tight, like the words got stuck halfway up. I don't know, I said finally. It wasn't a lie. Not really. It's tall, really tall. Its arms are too long. Its mouth... My voice trailed off. My mind replayed that black void, the hollow eyes. My stomach twisted. Too long? Rachel asked gently. James, are you saying it's someone wearing a mask or... No, I cut in, my voice cracking. It's not a mask. It's not human. The line went quiet for a moment. I heard her breathe in. James, she said slowly, carefully. Are you sure? Could it be someone in a costume, maybe? Sometimes when we're scared, our minds... I know what I saw, I snapped, louder than I meant to. My voice echoed off the hotel walls, and I flinched at how desperate I sounded. Rachel didn't react. She stayed calm. Okay, I believe you. You're doing great, James. Just stay with me, all right? The officers are still on their way. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath. My eyes stayed locked on the door. I couldn't tell her the truth. Not all of it. If I said a monster crawled out of my basement and followed me to a hotel, they'd think I lost my mind. Maybe I had, but the thing outside, the voice, it wasn't in my head. It was real. and it wasn't gone. An hour passed in what felt like seconds. The room was still, but I couldn't escape the feeling that something was wrong. My pulse thudded in my ears, every breath a battle against the rising panic. Rachel's voice kept me tethered to reality, her calm words a thread I clung to. Then, suddenly, a knock at the door. Knock, knock, I froze. The hairs on my neck stood up. "Hello, this is the police. Open the door." "This is the police. Open the door." A wave of relief flooded through me. I wasn't alone. Finally. The officers were here. I rushed to the door, heart pounding in my chest. I glanced at my phone to make sure I hadn't missed anything, and there it was. The call still connected, Rachel's voice as steady as ever. "James, stay calm. They're on their way." I could hear the muffled voice of the officer outside, repeating the same line. The door was within reach. I grabbed the handle, yanked it open, ready to let in the safety of the police. But there it stood. The creature. It towered, its limbs unnaturally long, bent in sickening angles. Its black, empty eyes locked onto mine. The grin that stretched across its face was wide and chilling. Too wide. I looked down at my phone in my trembling hands. The screen read, 911. What's your emergency? A smile twisted across the creature's face. It wasn't the officer. It never was. I staggered back, my blood running cold. My stomach dropped into a pit of icy dread. And then it hit me. Rachel never asked for my location. I had never been on the phone with the police. I had been talking to it. God help me. Now enjoy next amazing story. Since time immemorial, in an old house south of the capital, things happened that defied all logic. It wasn't a grand mansion or a forgotten estate, but a modest home with high ceilings and brick walls that, over the years, had witnessed countless stories. 3 generations of women lived there. The grandmother, her daughter, and her granddaughter. And with them, something else. Something they had never seen, but whose presence was impossible to ignore. For as long as her mother could remember, strange events had taken place in that house. Objects disappeared without explanation, only to reappear in impossible places. Chairs moved on their own, doors slammed shut without any apparent draft. Small damages no one could attribute to human hands. But the most unsettling part was the nights. Because in the darkness of the house, when silence should have reigned, laughter could be heard. Sharp, mocking laughter, accompanied by tiny footsteps stomping furiously on the floor. Knocks on the windows, whispers in the corners. For the mother and grandmother, everything had an explanation. A goblin lived in the house. It wasn't a fairy tale or a story to scare children. It was a certainty. Over the years, they had learned to live with it, to respect its rules. The most important one, never enter without greeting it. It didn't matter if the house was empty or seemed quiet. One had to say good afternoon or good evening when crossing the threshold, because if not, the goblin would get angry. And when that happened, its fury was undeniable. The girl's mother had instilled this in her from a young age. "Always greet, my child. We don't want to upset it," she would say, as naturally as others warn about traffic or rain. And throughout her childhood, she obeyed. She did it without question, as part of her daily routine. But as she grew older, doubt took root in her mind. She was logical, skeptical. She didn't believe in superstitions or bedtime stories. The idea of an irritable goblin hiding socks and tangling hair seemed absurd to her. And with the rebelliousness of adolescence, she decided to challenge the family tradition. One day, she simply stopped greeting. One afternoon, while working on a philosophy assignment at my friend's house, her grandmother was looking for her. Keys to go run some errands. She checked the small ceramic bowl at the entrance, where she always left them, but they weren't there. Frowning, she searched the pockets of her apron. Nothing. "Did you take my keys?" she asked her granddaughter. "No, Grandma," she replied without looking up from her notebook. The old woman sighed and murmured with amused resignation, "It must have been him." I looked up, puzzled. But my friend just rolled her eyes in exasperation. "Grandma, please. I already told you those things don't exist. You probably left them somewhere else and forgot." The grandmother didn't argue. Her expression was that of someone who knows a truth others refuse to accept. While my friend went to fetch her own keys to lend her, the grandmother leaned toward me and whispered, She doesn't want to believe, but I know what's happening here. Ever since I stopped playing with him, he's gotten mischievous. He hides things from me, moves the furniture. It's not my memory failing, it's him, and he's upset. Before I could respond, my friend returned with a set of keys and handed them over. Here, use mine. The grandmother accepted them and headed to the door. Before leaving, she paused at the threshold and gave us a warm smile. Be good, girls. And then, in a barely audible voice, she added, See you soon. She wasn't speaking to us. She was speaking to him. The door closed behind her, and at that moment, a dull thud echoed down the hallway. A hollow, dry sound, as if something small had jumped from a great height. My friend paled, and for the first time, a shadow of doubt crossed her face. Though the doubt flickered briefly across my friend's expression, she quickly convinced herself, or at least tried to, that it was just something falling. Nothing more. I watched her warily, but chose to ignore the incident. However, what the grandmother had told me kept circling in my mind like an insistent echo, and maybe that's why I started noticing things. I don't know if it was my imagination playing tricks on me, or if my senses, once indifferent, had suddenly sharpened. Perhaps it had always been there, at the edge of my vision, in the background murmur, waiting for someone to pay attention. Because I heard it. The unmistakable sound of keys falling to the floor. My eyes locked onto my friend, waiting for her reaction. But she kept typing on her laptop, oblivious, as if she hadn't heard anything. The house fell silent. Only the intermittent keystrokes and our voices discussing the assignment broke the stillness. But something felt off. I sensed it at the nape of my neck, in the thick air, in the uncomfortable feeling of not being alone. I forced myself to shake off the thought, and after a while, I got up to go to the bathroom. The hallway was dimly lit, and halfway through, I saw it. A set of keys scattered on the floor. I crouched cautiously and picked them up. They were cold, to the touch. All of them were made of gray metal, except for one, a golden one. I turned them in my hands, puzzled. Had this caused the noise earlier? I looked around. The rooms were closed, the windows secured. There were no hooks or shelves from which they could have fallen. Yet, there they were. I stood up quickly and entered the bathroom, shutting the door behind me. I had just turned on the faucet to wash my hands when it happened. Knocking. 3 knocks. Given with knuckles. Firm. Precise. Yes, baby? I asked, thinking it was my friend. Silence. Not a... What is it? I insisted, louder this time. Nothing. Not a single sound. Only the running water. I swallowed hard, turned off the faucet, and, with a racing pulse, twisted the doorknob. As soon as I opened the door, I found my friend standing there. Her hand was raised, ready to knock. I was going to ask if you wanted juice, lemonade, or coffee, she said casually. My stomach clenched. It hadn't been her. Even so, I forced a stiff smile and said lemonade would be fine. I followed her to the kitchen, trying to calm the tightness in my chest. But as soon as we arrived, another unsettling detail added to the list. My friend clicked her tongue in annoyance and grabbed a cloth. The sugar jar was tipped over on the counter, its contents spilled like a white blanket. She picked up the trash can with her other hand and started cleaning, irritated. It fell, she murmured. But something didn't add up. The other jars remained in their place, their lids tightly sealed. Salt, coffee, spices. Only the sugar jar was open. I looked around for the lid and found it. It was on the floor, several steps away from the table, near the stove. I bent down and picked it up, holding it between my fingers. Something about it unsettled me, as if it carried the mark of a silent joke. I stood up and handed it to my friend. She took it with the same puzzled expression I likely had. Thanks, she whispered, placing it back in its spot. But we both knew it hadn't been an accident. Though my friend tried to convince herself that everything had a logical explanation, the unease on her face betrayed her. I said nothing, but the feeling that something unseen was watching us grew stronger. That night, long after I'd left, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my friend. You won't believe what just happened. I sat up in bed and responded, immediately. What happened? She took a few minutes to type. Then, the message appeared on my screen. I just heard something. I don't know how to explain it. I'm in my room, and I heard a laugh. But it wasn't my mom's, nor anyone. I know, it was like a child's, but mocking. It came from the hallway. A chill ran down my spine. I wrote to her immediately. Go to your mom's room. Now. My friend took a while to respond. When she did, the message was dry. I'm not doing that. It must have been the neighbor's TV or something. I pressed my lips together in frustration. I didn't want to argue, but I knew. I knew it wasn't the TV or the wind or a coincidence. I knew he was there. My friend stopped replying. I didn't insist, but I spent the night uneasy, holding my phone, waiting for a message that never came. Nights in that house were no longer peaceful. At first, it was a subtle feeling, a faint tingling on her skin, like someone was watching her from a dark corner of her room. But with each passing day, he felt more present, more insistent. One early morning, she woke up with a strange sensation on the back of her neck, as if small fingers had run across her skin in a mocking caress. Her heart pounded as her mind wrestled between fear and logic. It must be my imagination, she told herself, squeezing her eyes shut. But then she heard it, a soft, quick sound, like small footsteps running across the room. It wasn't the floor creaking, nor the house settling. No, they were steps, agile, restless, circling her in the dark. She held her breath, and the sound stopped. Summoning her courage, she reached for the lamp switch on her nightstand. She turned it on with a click, and the yellow light flooded the room. There was no one there, but something was wrong. The things on her desk were out of place. Her laptop, which she had left closed, was now open, the screen glowing. Her books were on the floor, some with their pages bent, as if someone had flipped through them carelessly. Her wardrobe, which she always kept neatly organized, had its doors ajar and her clothes in disarray. Her heart skipped a beat. She got out of bed, a mix of fear and anger bubbling inside her. This can't be real, she muttered. She searched every corner of her room, but there was no sign that anyone had entered. She stood still, scanning her surroundings, trying to find an explanation. And then she saw it. Her dresser mirror, where she looked at herself every night before bed, had something that wasn't there before. It wasn't her reflection. Not exactly. It was a shadow. A blurry silhouette standing right behind her. She spun around instantly, heart pounding in her throat, but there was no one there. When she turned back to the mirror, the shadow was gone. That was enough. She rushed to grab her phone and texted me, telling me what had happened. She wanted me to give her a logical answer, something to calm her down. But I only wrote a single sentence that made her shudder. Say hello. But she didn't want to. Not yet. And he knew it. That night, she barely slept. She forced herself to think of something else, repeating over and over that there had to be a logical explanation. But deep down, she felt that something in the house was waiting. When she woke up the next day, her body was tense, as if she hadn't rested at all. She got up heavily and went to the bathroom without even looking at her room. But when she came back, she knew something was wrong. The window, which she always kept closed, was wide open. The morning air made the curtains sway gently. And then she saw it. Her clothes, the ones she had left folded on the chair, were scattered across the floor, as if someone had thrown them in anger. The drawers of her dresser were open, and on her desk, her laptop screen flickered, as if someone had tried to use it. Her stomach tightened. She took a step toward the window and felt something under her feet. She looked down. The keys. The same. Ones I had found days earlier in the hallway. But this time, they weren't just lying on the floor. They were perfectly aligned in a straight line, leading from the door to the center of the room, removed from their keyring and arranged in that strange, deliberate pattern. A shiver ran down her spine. She could no longer deny it. He was playing with her. He wanted her attention. And then a sound froze her in place. A whisper. She couldn't make out the words, but she felt the cold breath on the back of her neck, as if someone was standing too close. She spun around, heart racing, but the room was empty. Her mouth went dry. She grabbed her phone and texted me again, her fingers trembling. Things are getting worse. I think I need to get out of here. But my response was simple, because it was obvious what he wanted. It was what her mother and grandmother had taught her all along. Don't leave. Just say hello." Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She didn't want to. She couldn't. Then, the mirror creaked. And this time, the shadow didn't disappear. No matter how much she moved, no matter the angle, she could no longer shake off that figure. I never understood why she simply didn't leave her room and seek refuge with her mother or grandmother. Was it her ego? Her stubbornness? Her need to feel in control? I don't know why she was so reluctant to accept that what was happening was real, but how else could she explain it? That night, her sleep was light, restless. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt someone watching her from the darkness. An inexplicable cold settled in the room. She turned in bed, searching for her blanket, when something made her freeze. Footsteps. Again, she thought. Small, quick, as if someone barefoot was walking on her carpet. She swallowed hard. The sound stopped right beside her bed. She held her breath. Her skin prickled when she felt a slight tug on the sheets, as if someone were trying to uncover her. And then, a finger, a cold, bony finger slid gently over her arm. She stifled a scream and shot up, desperately turning on the light. Nothing. Her room was completely silent, but something was off. She approached her desk, and on one of her notebooks, right on the cover, in clumsy, childlike handwriting, written with a red pen that lay among her scattered things, something was written. Say, hello. Her blood ran cold. She couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed her phone and texted me. I was asleep by then, and honestly, I didn't hear anything that night. I can't. This is too much. Then, her screen flickered. The phone shut off. And in the reflection of the mirror behind her, she saw a tall, hunched shadow. A freezing breath brushed her neck. And this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a growl. Low. Hoarse. Impatient. Salu! The bulb in her lamp exploded. Darkness swallowed her. Even so, she decided she wouldn't give in. She locked herself in her room, checked every corner with her dead phone in hand, and lit a candle beside her bed, as if a small flame could ward off something she couldn't even see. But he had waited long enough. At 3:33 a.m., the candle went out in an instant, as if someone had blown it. The cold returned. This time there were no footsteps, no whispers, only a sound. Breathing, long, deep, right in her ear. She pulled the covers over herself, trembling, refusing to accept what was happening. Then, the bed creaked. The mattress sank, as if an invisible weight had settled beside her. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. And then, a whisper. Not a drawn-out one. Not a moan. Not a command. A greeting. Sweet, playful, like a child who had been waiting for a long time. Shh. The air grew heavy. The pressure on the mattress increased. Something unseen tugged at the sheets, slowly, inch by inch, exposing her face. She couldn't scream. She couldn't move. A cold breath brushed her cheek, and a voice, now deeper, rougher, more impatient, whispered with something that sounded like a smile. Your turn. She didn't think twice. With a voice broken, choked by terror, without daring to open her eyes, she whispered, Hi. The weight vanished. The air turned warm, and in the darkness, just before the candle reignited on its own, she heard the laughter of a child. A triumphant laugh. He had won. My friend never ignored him again. Even I started greeting the empty air whenever I visited her house. It was something everyone did, and I didn't know if it was right to ignore it. I wasn't part of that family, nor did I live in that house, but I didn't want to pick fights that weren't mine. And he, satisfied, never bothered again, or at least, not in the same way. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.